Hi, folks, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. I am in Glasgow, unfortunately. I was supposed to be going to Napoli, but some family circumstances that meant I have not been able to travel. Derek he was also supposed to be in Napoli, but decided at the last minute he was going to head for the eternal city of Rome to do a scouting mission and check out Napoli against Roma at the Stadio Olimpico. If anyone was looking at Derek's socials last night, you would have seen some pretty phenomenal footage inside the stadium itself. He seemed to be in with the, I wouldn't go as far as to say the ultras, but certainly a pretty vociferous group of fans, and it looked absolutely sensational. Just first of all, Derek, a wee word on the atmosphere. What was it like? I've not been to an Italian football match myself. It looked like a fantastic spectacle.
Yeah, it was class, Jonny. The atmosphere was sensational from start to finish. Even though Roma get beat 1-0, even at full time when the players came over to applaud the fans, the noise was unreal. First time I've ever experienced an Italian match myself, and thoroughly enjoyed it. It's unlike anything. I'd recommend if you get the chance to go to one, folks, then do take that opportunity up, because it really is quite something. Not many Napoli fans, I've got to say. They were housed up in the top tier, just in, if you can call it, the main stand. Probably just a couple of thousand, if that. But yes, just over 61,000 in the ground last night. The majority of which, of course, were Roma supporters, and just a great spectacle, Jonny. That the amount of flags and the amount of songs that they have, it really is something else, and they're so passionate as well. It was a real joy to be a part of last night, going to the game. As I say, when in Rome, I noticed that Napoli, of course, were playing Roma last night, so I thought, why not head up? Got the speedy train was travelling at the speed of sound. It sounded like 300 kilometres per hour at one point, but we got there, and it was a really great experience. So yeah, in Rome, just outside my hotel room, heading back down to Naples this afternoon as we look ahead to the game on Wednesday night. But I can tell you, Napoli looked pretty decent last night.
A few comments coming in. We were a little bit late this morning. Gallant Pioneer saying, I thought the show wasn't on this morning. We have had some Wi-Fi issues with Derek's laptop, which is why he's doing the whole James Richardson thing from a cafe. He just needs to get that cappuccino in there and adopt a slightly posh English accent, and you will be right there amongst it, Derek.
I'm just missing the Gazzetta dello Sport paper.
I was going to say, you certainly got the top. We've had a few people coming back to us saying we want to just take a moment to applaud Derek's T-shirt. That was Jamie Brown. Gallant Pioneer saying, love Derek's jumper. So yeah, definitely you've got the right top on for the spirit of the show this afternoon or this morning, Derek. So in terms of the game itself, you said Napoli were quite impressive. I caught glimpses of the game. The goal was certainly spectacular. The goal that decided the game. I think the key thing was the way that Napoli restricted Roma, who are a pretty decent side themselves. They won, of course, the Conference League last season. Jose Mourinho, the manager. So they're a decent outfit. Some very, very good players, especially towards the top end of the pitch. I think Zaniolo is a very, very good player. Dybala's obviously in there. They're a top team, but they didn't have a single shot on target on their own ground.
No. And they had Tammy Abraham up front. He never get much joy. He was physical enough, but Napoli dealt with them pretty well, Jonny. And you're right, not a shot on target. They looked comfortable throughout, you've got to say. They did get physical the first half. They tried and stopped them playing. But Napoli's class shone. Rui Patricio was called into a couple of saves. First half from Zielinski, and then he touched over a Lozano shot in the second half. It was an absolute rasp, and then Osman with the goal was a beauty. Get goal side of Chris Smalling and just bulleted the shot past the goalkeeper. But if you're looking at Roma, the side littered with quality themselves. They brought Belotti on as well, but they just couldn't get anywhere near the Napoli goal. So it just shows you how tough it's going to be for Rangers on Wednesday night. You're struggling to think where, if any goals are going to come from. Probably set pieces are your best bet.
Yeah, Derek, we normally have a little bit of negativity in the comments when things are going badly for Rangers, but nothing like this. I don't think there's a single person that thinks Rangers have got a chance in this game. I mean, there is zero excitement. Aldo 21574 saying, I hate to say this, but having zero excitement for the game. And a number of people saying, looking really to keep the score down. David Park absolutely dreading going over there 5 or 6-0. There really isn't a lot of positivity. Katic Loyal 72 saying, be lucky to get away with a 5-0 defeat on Wednesday. That sense is permeating the entire support, isn't it, Derek? I have to say, I don't think it's altogether that unrealistic. Personally, if you were offering me a 3-0 right now, I would snap your hand right off. I don't think I've ever said that about a Rangers European game.
No, it's so depressing. I think when we do our predictions, usually we always are pretty optimistic, Jonny, and we look that Rangers can get a result, but I can't see them getting anything from this game. The only thing that might give you a little bit of hope is the fact that Napoli have already qualified. Will they play a second string? Will they rest players? Fingers crossed they do, because even if they do that, Jonny, the reserve team, the squad is littered with so much quality, it defies belief. And Rangers, as we know, and as we witnessed at the weekend, are devoid of confidence. They're just slow and ponderous at the moment. I can't see them really testing Napoli. If Roma can't do it, then what makes you think that Rangers are going to do it? So yeah, I'm like you, Jonny. I think if they can come away with a respectable scoreline on Wednesday night, I think that is probably the best that Rangers can hope for at the moment. It's defeatist, of course, but there's nothing on the evidence that we've witnessed that tells you that Rangers can get a result over here. So yeah, I think it's going to be a long evening. It's going to be a tough one, especially on the flanks. I touched on it last night. Kvaratskhelia and Lozano, if they're playing, Rangers are going to have to double up on both flanks, because Tavernier and Barisic are likely to get roasted on those flanks. And Osimhen in the middle as well. I'm not too sure if he'll play, but they've got so much quality littered throughout the team, Jonny. It's going to have to be a real robust defensive performance, backs to the wall. I'm not too sure what the rules are if you can play 2 or 3 goalies, but they're going to have to stick everyone behind the ball. I seen someone posting the other day there saying, park the plane, never mind park the bus, but park the aeroplane. So I think it's going to have to be one of those sort of nights.
Yeah, I mean, Scott's Welder is the one. He is the one that's coming in with the positivity. He's saying 3-1 to Rangers.
There we go.
I've said it. What a result that would be. Jeez, remember, Napoli have won their last 11 games on the spin, equaling in their best run of form since 1986, when a certain Argentinian playmaker called Diego Armando Maradona was strutting his stuff in that midfield. What a team that was. Well, I say what a team. It wasn't really that good a team. It was more that they had the best player in the world and some half-decent players around them that could help him. But what a player Maradona was. Anyone of our vintage, Derek, looks back on that period with a hell of a lot of nostalgia.
I'm looking forward to going down. Of course, you see the shrines on the internet and what have you. I'm looking forward to going and having a wee walk about later on and seeing it, because he's idolised down there, isn't he, Jonny? He's hero worshipped down there in Naples. But they're more of a team unit now, aren't they? And a lot of people suggesting they could go quite far in this competition. I agree. Any team that can dismantle Liverpool in the way that they did. I know Liverpool have been so out of form at the moment, even though they gave Rangers a good hiding at Ibrox, Anfield as well, of course. But listen, I think this is a special team under Spalletti. I think that they're probably favourites to go on and win Serie A, based on their start to the season. And in the Champions League, I think they're dark horses to go all the way as well.
Absolutely. Few people asking me, Jonny, I thought you were off to Napoli. Yeah, unfortunately, had a passing in my family, so I've not been able to get across there, unfortunately, due to that and due to family reasons. So I will be working from home throughout, but I need to be here, family first and all that. So unfortunately, yes, Derek is there on his own, but that will not mean a drop in the standard of coverage. Derek will be ensuring that I can live vicariously through him. He sent me a picture last night, because he knows that I like my beer, my wine, my food, as you can probably tell when you look at the nick of me, guys. And it was a Belgian beer in Italy. Now, I'll give them credit. It was a good Belgian beer. It was a Belgian beer I approve of. But Belgian beer in Italy, you need to be on the vino. El Vino did flow, Derek.
I'll be on the vino later on this evening, Johnny. I don't know what was thinking last night. The beer was pretty decent, I've got to say. And even the Peroni in the ground, I got a Peroni and a little, I posted that last night, a little sort of prosciutto and cheese bake thing. Absolute first class. And I loved the fact that there was guys walking around selling beers to fans sitting in their seats, which was something I don't think we'll ever see in Scottish football. But we live in hope, of course. But yeah, that beer last night was sensational. But yeah, I promise I'll be on the Vin Rouge or the Vin Blanc this evening.
Yes. What a fantastic group of people we have following us. Some lovely, lovely words. So I want to thank you all for those for me. On top of that, Derek, I've got Gallon Pioneer coming in saying Tennent's Super Lager. Now, people who don't go to Italy often maybe don't know this, but it's one of these weird idiosyncrasies that when you get to Italy, it just takes you a little bit aback if you're Scottish. Because Tennent's Super over there is essentially a craft beer, a kind of something that is quite expensive. The Italians like to drink it. It's popular. It's supermarkets everywhere. And it's not seen as a sort of slightly down market, probably marketed at a certain demographic, shall we say, that it is in Scotland. It's kind of seen as a very classy drink that you would slowly sip. Are you going to get stuck in and do what the Italians do to the old Tennent's Super?
I've never seen it in the bar last night, but I've heard of that. It's almost like back home, like a red Peroni or
yes,
what have
exactly.
you, as a delicacy. So yeah, I'm looking to source that later on at some point today. If I do, you'll hear all about it, folks. I don't think I've actually ever had a Tennent's Super Lager, I've got to say. Yeah. So when in Rome, I'll try and source it out.
Derek, I had one when I was about 15 or something like that, and I have to say, absolutely not for me, not good at all. But it's just so odd that the Italians, obviously famed for their food and drink, would be getting stuck right into the Tennent's Super. It's a bit of a misnomer. Can't really understand it myself, but there we go. It does happen. It is true. When you get to Italy, just walk into any supermarket and you will see it lining the beer shelves in almost every place in Italy. So a bit of a weird one. Right, listen, we've chatted about Italy, we've chatted about Napoli. We know how scary they are, and we'll be doing a lot more as you continue in Italy. Derek, you're obviously going to be there till Thursday, so there'll be plenty of content coming, guys. We'll be back with a video tonight at around 5:30-ish, roughly around there. Make sure you subscribe so you get a notification when we go live, because we don't have a specific time, but once Derek gets into his Neapolitan digs, and let me tell you, I selected them personally, so they are going to be good. You can be guaranteed of that. He's got the whole place to himself, a lovely apartment in central Naples. But once he gets settled in, we'll do maybe an hour tonight, taking your questions and chatting about all things Rangers. So make sure, as I say, you are subscribed to the YouTube channel so you get a notification when we're doing that. But we need to touch on also the game at the weekend, Derek. Obviously, I was there at Ibrox, and amongst it, Joshua's in Switzerland at the moment, our reporter, so normally he'd be at the game, but I shot along for that. It was a diabolical performance from beginning to end. Was it much worse than Dundee? No, it was pretty much about the same. It was pretty much what we've come to expect when Rangers are not functioning properly, when they're not firing, and you just didn't know where the goal was coming from. The game changed after Lundstram scored. That the final 7 minutes, Rangers actually had a little bit of positivity and went for it a little bit more, and they looked like a different team than we'd seen in the previous 90 minutes. Lundstram obviously should have scored with a header at the end to make it 2-1, but it would have been a result Rangers scarcely deserved, Derek. It was just very, very poor. The boos rang out at both half-time and full-time, and I can tell you, sitting in the press box, there was a serious amount of disgruntlement at Giovanni van Bronckhorst throughout the game. Shouts if you don't know what you're doing, clueless, etc., etc. Deeply unhappy. And listen, I said the other day on the video that we can't know for sure what the whole fan base is thinking. We don't speak for the whole fan base. We speak for ourselves. And we speak to fans, obviously. But the ones that I'm speaking to, Derek, they are fed up. They're done with this manager. And that's just the cold reality as it stands today. I think you'll see that in the comments. If anyone's still standing by Gio, by all means, shout into these comments, and we will get your comment up there.
Jonny, I met a couple of Rangers fans yesterday who have come over. They're not going to the game now because they've been advised not to. They're going to Sorrento. But shout out to Big Dale from Renfrew. What a character he was. But he's actually backing Gio. I asked him about the manager situation. He says he would make a change at the moment. He says he deserves at least until the World Cup. So that is one voice that I've heard that is backing the manager to continue in the job. But there's a growing amount of fans that have had enough. I think Liverpool sort of turned many against him, and he needs results and performances. And at the moment, you mentioned Dundee, that was not good enough. Livingston, you're wanting a reaction. It wasn't there. So you're thinking to yourself, do you have belief that he can turn this around? I know he was asked if he has the belief of the players, and he says he thinks he hopes he does. I don't think the players understand what they're trying to do or carrying out what his game plan, how he wants it to be carried out. I know people are talking about the horseshoe, that interview we did with the Feyenoord supporter when he was appointed, and this stark similarities, Jonny. Just boring to watch at the moment. A lot of Rangers fans you hear at the moment saying they're leaving early, leaving at half time even, which was unheard of in recent years. So the fans, at the end of the day, if they're not going to Ibrox, if they're turning away, then that's when usually the board will react. But he needs to turn this around quickly because time is fast running out for him.
Yeah, got a comment coming in there for Robert McFarlane saying we have to look at very poor signings. Only Lawrence has worked. I think that's a bit unfair. Robert. Yeah. And I think Ben Davies has looked absolutely terrific in the short spell that he's been in. I think Cholak, Lawrence, and Davies are all going to be really, really good signings. The question marks in terms of the transfer business are going to be around not even necessarily Yilmaz and Matondo being good players or not, because they might well prove to be over time. I think it's more about the volume of cash that's been spent on those two players. Given where Rangers are at financially, they don't have tons of money to be throwing around. I think we all know that. So if you're going to spend between 5 and 7 million, depending on the add-ons that go out, you need to make it work, don't you, Derek? And I think that's the problem. Rangers, to me, in midfield, and this is the massive thing when I was watching the game, just looked totally adrift in midfield. Now, the formation, essentially, when you're looking at it on paper, you're going, that's a 4-3-3. But actually, in reality, it was almost like 3-1-6. That makes sense.
It was all over the place, Jonny.
Because what you had was you had Barisic tucking in alongside the two centre halves with Lundstrom in front. Tavernier pushed right up, although he doesn't look himself at the moment. He claims when I asked him about it that he's physically fine. He doesn't look it. On the left was Kent, and then you had the two attacking midfield players, Arfield and Stephen Davis, pushed right up, almost on the last line, like strikers. So there's clearly an attempt to get more bodies in the box, but I think there was at the loss of control of the game. And afterwards, I thought it was absolutely telling that David Martindale came in and said, we were set up because we wanted them to throw balls into the box. And throw balls into the box, they did 73 crosses in the game and only one goal. Yes, it did come from a cross from Ryan Kent, but it's not a great return. I don't think I've ever seen so many crosses in terms of statistics. And I remember at one point, Gerrard was getting played for having a team that had 35 crosses in one game. So 73 is, it's just an unbelievable number. And it just kind of underlined the aimlessness of Rangers in the game, especially from the left side. Borna Barisic was putting in just so many balls. Ryan Kent, so many balls, and just very little coming off.
This adds to the argument then, Jonny. We had a great piece on the website last week about introducing Rid van Yilmaz. I know the manager said he picked up a knock against Dundee, so he was on the bench at the weekend, but he offers something different instead of those aimless crosses into the box. A bit of dynamism, running at players, committing players. You need to introduce him. I think I guarantee he won't be playing on Wednesday night, but Rangers need something different, don't they? It was just so, like as you said, David Martindale said, it was so easy to defend against Rangers playing in front of them, balls into the box, can nod them away all day long, and that proved to be the case. You need to have a plan B or even a plan C. You need to change it up, make the opposition guess or not have a clue what you're going to do next. And Rangers just kept doing the same thing over and over again on Saturday, and like I said earlier on, it's just boring to watch at the moment, Jonny. It's just not enjoyable.
There's just no quality through the middle. Now I get like Tom Lawrence was brought in because he could ping one in from 25 yards, and that's huge, and that could have been huge over these games. And you've been a massive advocate of Tom Lawrence before he was even signed, and from what we saw, he certainly looked like he was going to be a major player. But unfortunately, he's been taken out by injury, and that has really exposed a lack of dynamism in that central midfield area. The thing is there's a lot of people talking about giving Davies an extra deal, giving Arfield an extra deal. I don't mind that, to be honest, Derek. I think Arfield's shown that he's
good
still
squad players, Jonny.
Yeah, good squad players, and that's the point, Derek. They should be squad players now. They shouldn't be relied on as the main men. I think that's the problem. Now, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, I was told when those players signed, they were re-signed because Giovanni Van Bronckhorst wanted to keep them. So, for me, I think we're going through a phase where there's a lot of anger, totally understandable, and everyone's getting it at the moment. I think it's on the manager. The vast majority of this is on the manager. There's been issues with other things, don't get me wrong, but if you look at the state Celtic were in after Rangers did 55, one good manager comes in, completely changes everything. I think that can happen. I think Rangers have got a lot of good players. There's a misshapeness to that squad. There needs to be more dynamism, more runners from midfield. At least 2 central midfielders need to be brought in January for me.
No doubt.
We can't sugarcoat that. If that doesn't happen, that is absolutely unacceptable. We need to get players in there who have got legs and who can run and who can go box to box. That is desperately what Rangers need. But I think a lot of this pressure lands on Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's shoulders. He said he was happy with the squad. He said it was a really good squad. So,
he's not. I know you're saying that, Jonny, but he's not going to come out and say he's not happy with the squad, is he? I think that there's a degree of. But
you can say things without saying them, Derek. You know, you can. There's ways and means of saying things. Steven Gerrard made it pretty clear he wasn't happy.
But then that after that Ajax game, he did say that the Rangers can't compete with the squad, so they're going up against. So we bit of mixed messages there perhaps. But listen, I think he should be doing better with the players at his disposal. The midfield is just it's difficult because there are injuries. You mentioned Tom Lawrence, Ryan Jack, of course, is out injured as well at the moment. So you're relying on guys like Davis and Arfield every game, and they simply can't play every game. They've been overrun. You've got Charlie McCann there. I think he needs a run of games. Now, I know he's raw. He's going to have bad games. We need to understand that. He's just a young player making his way in the game. Tillman's work rate leaves a lot to be desired, but he's another one. He's just a baby in terms of a footballing career. So you need to give a bit of patience for him. But there's no experience in there, no real star quality. I think John Lundstrom's another one that looks like he's been carrying an injury. In fact, he said as much, didn't he, in that podcast he did last week, saying he's been carrying an ankle injury. Gio said that he had scans, but he's okay. Listen, the players just look leggy and out of form, and it's I think Saturday was a result. I think everyone could see the dark clouds ringing, and I know they were winning games, winning 5 in a row domestically, but everyone could see it was going to come to an end at some point. And Saturday it did do so, like you say. I think a point Rangers are probably fortunate to get that. I think all three. If Lundstrom scores that header, that would have been a get out of jail job. But it just papers over the cracks, Jonny. And like you say, midfielders have to be signed in January, not project players, experienced pros. I know it's difficult to bring in players in the January window, but Rangers need to find players from somewhere to go into that first team, not squad players. They've got enough of them as it is. They need players that will go in and improve that first team, and you just hope that they're still in the title race by when that time comes along.
Yeah, and Derek, I think none of us want to hear excuses about it. It's difficult to bring in players because it's not at the end of the season. Then I think you need to go to Japan. I think you need to go to Scandinavian leagues that are finishing up for their winter break or whatever. You need to actually get guys in at this point that can come in and make a difference. You just cannot allow the sort of midfield situation to continue on. And no. Even if Tom Lawrence is back fit, even if Yanis Hadji is back fit, that will give you a big boost. It will having those two back. You still need, I think, another two if you're going to play this Geo style, which is one sitter plus two runners. You need a lot more to cover you for injury. It's just too. It's obvious. A couple of comments coming in, Derek, and I think this is an absolutely fair point from Gallant Pioneer, who's always good with his comments. He said, "We struggled to compete with Livingston," so that quote, and he's referring to the quote about not being able to compete, has already been put to the sword. You know,
it's an easy one. It's an easy one to say. The financial aspect of it, and the golfing class is there for all to see. I think Rangers in a proper, really, really tough group in the Champions League. There's a lot. There's far easier groups in the competition this year, but Rangers are right in one that's arguably the toughest of the lot. I mean, Ajax were in pot 1, for heaven's sake, so Napoli in pot 3, so that tells its own story. But he's right. Gallant Pioneer's absolutely correct there. I don't like when they run out the financial line. You often hear it when teams come up against Rangers. It's not... Teams, you can get result against teams, so I can see where he's coming from there. It's an easy line to say after the defeat.
Yeah, absolutely. Some comments coming in now. Positive vibes saying hopefully Hadji comes back soon. Bluebell saying
at least.
So do Tav, Lundstrom, Kent, Barisic, Matondo, Alfie, Tillman, and more suddenly come back to form if we change the manager. Shame on them. I think we've seen that. I mean, you just have to look down to Aston Villa down south. Steven Gerrard couldn't buy a performance. It was very dull. It was very drab. It was very negative. Game after game, not an awful lot happening. Not much spark. Out goes Steven Gerrard. Within, 48 hours, Derek, they're panning Brentford 4-0 at home and playing them off the pitch, blowing them away within 15 minutes or 16 minutes. So I think it's a bit naive not to think that a new manager can come in and change form of players. Doesn't always work, but sometimes...
It's usually, they usually get a bounce, don't they? I think Rangers saw it when Graham Murty took over, when Pedro was sacked initially. Just that bounce of fresh face and players playing a bit more freedom. I think you generally do see that, Jonny. I think when the manager loses his job, but whether Villa can... sustain that remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a comment here coming in. This Jonny guy is talking crap. We've heard that a few times. Where are these players coming from and who is paying? I think fundamentally, money needs to be spent in January. I'm not talking about big money, huge money. Celtic bought Rio Hatate for £1 million. And has been the best midfielder in Scotland so far this season. You don't necessarily have to spend money, huge money. It's how you spend that money.
Jonny, we do scouting pieces as well on the website where the players are identified for very little money as well. I'm not saying Rangers go out and buy every single one, but a number of them you see being picked up by big clubs. So there are players out there. It's not an excuse that you need to spend big money to bring a player in. There are bargains to be had out there.
And listen, there's no doubt Rangers have got a recruitment department. There's been massive changeover in that department. That department was run by Andy Schoolding, who's gone down to Spurs. Now, he oversaw the summer's transfers, before leaving. There's since been massive change. You've now got is it John Park coming in?
Yes.
So John Park has that role to oversee the scouting department, and he's heavily involved in what Rangers are doing. I think there's something like there's well over 20 scouts now working for Rangers. I actually have the numbers in a piece that I did a couple of weeks back, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's a significant scouting team that's in place. So it'll be interesting to see the work done in January, because it will be the first example of this new scouting team in action that's been put in place. But I think the idea that, well, where is the money coming from? They have to find it from somewhere, because you can't continue with the midfield that Rangers have got. It's just unsustainable. It's unsustainable for any manager. You could go and get Pep Guardiola to come in. This midfield is very, very difficult to work with because of the injury situation and because of the imbalance in the squad in terms of runners and the age of players and things like that. So, I think it's a difficult one. A lot of people talking about Gio as if he's already gone, Derek. I mean, that's not the case, and I don't get the sense that that's likely to be the case anytime soon. I mean, obviously, who knows what could happen on Wednesday, and who knows what could happen from there. It could be a very, very difficult situation that unfolds on the back of that. 4 points behind in the league. It's been a fairly, I don't want to use the word easy, but it's been a run of games that you would expect Rangers to get full points in. It's not been Tynecastle apart that challenging a set of fixtures. Now, Livingston are a good team, well organised. We saw that at the weekend, and I don't want to be disrespectful to Davy Martindale and what he's done there, because he's done a fantastic job. But if you're putting it into the context of the size of the budgets, I mean, Davy Martindale said after the game that he absolutely has to get a signing right if it's £1,000 a week. He said, if I'm spending £1,000 a week, it must be right. I cannot get that wrong. It's too much money. Now, that's far less than even the youth players will probably be on at Rangers that are in the first team squad. So it gives you the context of the size of the gap. Where do you kind of put Van Bronckhorst's situation right now, right in this moment? How precarious is his position from your point of view?
Yeah, very, Jonny. I think he has to, I said earlier on, he has to win games. Like you said, there was a run of fixtures up until the World Cup break that looks favourable on paper, but that's always fraught with danger. You can always slip up, and as we've seen on Saturday, they did do so. But he has to win all those games. They have to go in no more than 4 points behind for that break for me. If it's any more, I think that's going to make supporters, even more supporters, lose trust in the manager. It's already, I seen a poll a few days ago where it's like 70+% want a change in the manager, which is a fair bit, you've got to say. He's just got to win, and not only win, I think, Jonny, even if Rangers somehow go on and be successful this season and win the league, the style of play has to improve. It's not just good enough just limping through games and winning and having to hold on, as we've seen it at Fir Park a couple of weeks ago, where Rangers really should have been out of sight. I know the Tynecastle was decent, 4-0 win over there. There has been 4-0 wins, of course, but in the main, the performances have left a lot to be desired. So the style of football has to improve, and results have to come. If neither comes, then Giovanni Van Bronckhorst knows, and that's the can falls with it's up to the manager to sort that. And if that it doesn't produce either, then I'm sure he'll understand it's maybe time for a change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a difficult one, Derek, because if you look at the history of Rangers, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is the 17th permanent manager. They have not had a lot of managers throughout their history. I think that is a great aspect of the club. You look at the two that have been and gone very, very quickly, and those are, of course, Pedro Caixinha and Paul Le Guen, but those are very, very small footnotes in the history of this club. And I don't think anyone within the institution itself wants to see managers not given a chance. That's not really the Rangers way. However, I think we are reaching a critical mass, and if this goes badly wrong in Italy, in Napoli on Wednesday, I struggle to see how he comes back from it. At the same time, part of me thinks, well, this is why Rangers is different. 17 managers. I think that's what Watford have had in about the last 3 years. You're able to put the portraits of the managers in the blue room because there's been so few. And again, I do think that's a great thing. I don't want Rangers to become a typical modern club that just fires people willy-nilly and doesn't give them an opportunity. But at the same time, you have to also be cognizant of the fans paying the wages of the players, paying the wages of the manager, and if they're unhappy, if they're informing about what's happening, then you have to kind of look at that and you have to take that very, very, very seriously indeed. It's a difficult situation.
Yeah, like I said, the fans leaving at half-time and the fans not turning up, leaving early, Jonny, well, I mean, the board will see that. I heard that you said the chants at the game on Saturday. The board will hear that as well. And that's when usually boards act, when the fans turn on the manager. And a lot more are now turning, of course. So, like I say, he needs results. I doubt he's going to get anything on Wednesday. If he does, it would be absolutely miraculous. It would be one of the most impressive European results of all time, all things considered, I think. But I don't hold out much hope. On the back of that as well, I don't think the board are likely to sack him over a Champions League result. I know that a lot of supporters wanted him going after the Liverpool debacle at Ibrox, and I could understand that. But I think anybody can. I mean, Liverpool get beat 7-2 by Aston Villa, but they didn't sack Jurgen Klopp after it. So these things can happen. But it's a pattern of results just now, Jonny. He needs to get out of this rut soon, because if it continues, then I think it ends in only one way, and that's the removal of the manager. And everyone wants him to do well, of course. Rangers hero for many when he was a player, and everyone likes. I think he represents Rangers really well, Gio. But at the end of the day, it's a results-driven business, and he's not getting them at the moment.
Yeah, quite a few comments talking about David Martindale.
I'm not entirely sure that is the right way to go.
Listen, guy, I'm going to have to give me 5 minutes to just go through this one. Listen, David Martindale's done an unbelievable job with Livingston. I think he's a really good manager. He's been at the heartbeat of that club for so long. But you don't go from Livingston to Rangers, guys. You just don't. You can't. There is no evidence that David Martindale can take a team that is on the front foot, game in, game out, week in, week out. There's evidence that he can build a low block. There's evidence that he can build up a club. But you need a manager who has experience of dealing with the pressure of challenging week in, week out for league titles and has proven track record on that front. Going for David Martindale, it just makes no sense for Rangers at this stage. He would need to take another club and prove it there. You can't go from Livingston to Rangers. Rangers is beyond that stage now, that in its development. Yeah. And it's nothing about David Martindale. I think he's a brilliant manager, and he deserves to he should be in the conversation for Hibs, Aberdeen, Hearts, Championship clubs when they come up and down in England. But Rangers is an institution, a huge job, and the type of characters that should now be brought in as Rangers managers are people like Giovanni van Bronckhorst, who have a history of winning titles. Now, Van Bronckhorst might not be working out, but he won the league in Holland with Feyenoord, which is no mean feat. He won cups in Holland with Feyenoord. He's managed in the Champions League. He might be and with that experience, he might still not make it. So I don't think you can talk about a David Martindale. And I'll be honest, I don't even think you can talk about like a Derek McInnes. There's other people talking about Derek McInnes. Rangers are beyond that kind of appointment now. If you're going to appoint someone from Scotland, they need to have an exciting track record of success. And I think they need to be young, up and coming, with the potential for future development, exciting coach. I don't think there's anyone in Scotland that fulfills the criteria. So that's why you need to have a director of football in place. Again, I'm seeing people talking about getting rid of directors of football. For me, that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The whole point of the director of football role is that when you change managers, there is not disruption to the larger infrastructure at the club. Now, there might be a separate discussion about Ross Wilson and recruitment that people want to have, but I think the whole point of the director of football is that you have a structure that gives you solidity, that gives you continuity, and that is the way it's supposed to run, and that's the point of it. So, for me, it's then on the director of football to go out and appoint the next manager. If you start talking about getting rid of the director of football and the manager, that's a fairly big step. And I think if you do that, you need to get a director of football in first, who can come in and have a look at the club, and then appoint his own man. Because we saw what happened with Rangers previously. You went and got Pedro Caixinha, and then you went and got Mark Allen after that, and you had Mark Allen in charge of the football department with a manager that he didn't select. I just don't think that's the proper way to go about it. I know there's circumstances behind that at the time, but I think that there has to be some sort of level of continuity. And for me, that means the director of football needs to be looking at the foreign market for another manager, or certainly not Scotland. It would have to be from the EPL sort of championship pool of potential managers, because I just don't see anyone in Scotland that fulfills the criteria you would need to become Rangers manager. And that's not to be disrespectful. As I say, I highly, highly rate David Martindale, and I highly, highly rate what he's done at Livingston. But, what's Livingston's average attendance? I mean, it's a big jump to go from that to 50,000 fans every week expecting you to win and a draw being a disaster.
Jonny, I think the last guy, of course, is Alex McLeish. Came from Hibs, and he did well considering that the budget he had. There was a couple of horror show seasons in there, of course, but I think based on the resources he had, he done extremely well, taking over from Dick Advocat. But you're right, I can't see Rangers going for a McInnes or a Martindale. Should they make way with Giovanni van Bronckhorst? Instead, I think they'll look down south. I've seen a number of names mentioned, like Sean Dyche and all that sort of stuff. That's the sort of calibre of manager you'd imagine Rangers would be going for if they were to make a change.
You know what? To be honest, I even think I've got a problem with Sean Dyche on that front, Derek. I just think Sean Dyche is the kind of guy that people get excited about. But, he did a great job at Burnley, and it was in the Premier League, so that gives him a lot of kudos. But at the same time, where's the evidence that Sean Dyche is a guy to deal with the sort of unremitting, relentless pressure of winning game after game after game after game?
But I think he's a strong character, Jonny. I think
I think he is a strong character, Derek, and he got Burnley up from the Championship, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that personally, I would have reservations about that. But you're based down there, so you know more of them than I do.
No, there's a reason. What I say, there's a reason that people are scratching their heads why he wasn't given an opportunity at a more high-profile club in the English Premier League, and I thought he deserved a chance at a bigger side. I'm not. Maybe people can correct me, but I'm not quite sure if he was offered the Everton job at one point and declined it. I'm not entirely sure, but he was in the frame for that at one point. But he deserved a shot at one of these big clubs to show what he can do. And he's never had the opportunity. Listen, every manager would be a risk if Rangers were to appoint someone. Even Giovanni van Bronckhorst was a risk, of course. Every manager has their risks, but for me, Sean Dyche is someone I think that the players, his man management skills are second to none. He's got a clear way of playing. People say, Burnley, but he had a bit of money to spend at Burnley as well. I know when they had to change of ownership, he didn't quite fit and they wanted to go in a different direction. They've got Vincent Kompany in now, but he worked wonders at Burnley. And I think he would be someone that the players would instantly respect and play for. And he would have that sort of admiration, not only from the players but from the supporters. I think that they would really buy into what he's trying to do. But I don't want to talk about other managers. We've got one at the moment, Jonny, but it's understandable considering the run Rangers are on, and that's what supporters are talking about now, is a possibility of changing the manager. But I just hope that Giovanni van Bronckhorst can turn this around. I don't know if he can. There's certainly doubts about it. Yeah, listen, he is one name that sticks out at the moment for me that's available. If Rangers were to look in the market, I'm not entirely sure if there's anyone else that they would look for. But like you say, Ross Wilson is the director of football. I think he should come in for a bit of scrutiny as well. I don't think it's all solely on the manager. I know someone mentioned earlier on about recruitment in the summer, but not just the summer. A few transfer windows going back now where the midfield really hasn't been addressed. I know John Lundstrom came in the summer of 2021 and it's come out, it turned out okay, but that aside, it's not necessarily been addressed. Well, it hasn't been addressed, and it needs to be addressed going forward. But a lot of fans don't have belief that Ross Wilson can identify the players and bring them in to improve that first 11. So lots of questions at the moment, Jonny. Let's just hope they can be answered.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think good points there, Derek. Right. Listen, I've just noticed we've done 46 minutes.
Yeah, I need to catch. I'm sure I've got a train shortly. So
yes,
I need to put it across Rome and get a train down to Naples.
Okay, my man. I'm going to let you go. We're going to be back later on. Like I say, follow our Twitter account, follow and subscribe here on YouTube, and you'll get a sense of when we're going to go live. You'll get a wee notification there. Please, please, please go and subscribe and support us at the Rangers Review. You get 2 months for £1 at the moment. www.rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe. And that obviously helps us to continue to do these daily videos, even though these are free. But yes, that's how we keep the lights on here at Rangers Review HQ. So listen, thanks to you all for tuning in. We hope to have, like I say, another show later on. So make sure you come back and join us when we do round about 6 o'clock-ish, 5:30, 6. Okay, thanks, guys.